All right. Whoa. Too much with the speaker there. Speakers. I changed the setup, and the audio was... No, it's not that one. It's this one. Okay. Good. Sorry. As you might expect, as the show starts today, things are a little crazy. Wisely, I thought, was so damn prepared for today's show. I was up late figuring out how to do a video breakdown of the Brandon Cooks play and walk right through it with the audio from the game. And there was a lot. I moved things around. The desk has moved. You can't tell from looking at it. The desk has moved. I got rid of some stuff over here. I've got a separate camera over here pointing at there's a lot going on. And as such, I typically have an alarm set for 8:45 because I like to wait for the kids to be gone because they're annoying. They're great, but the mornings are terrible here. Today is Martin Luther King Day, so they're home anyway. So they might have just heard me, and now I feel bad because they're sitting right above my head. But they've been quiet so far. But that's the plan. Normally I have an 8:45 alarm. I get up around then, get to any last-minute things ready, and then I have another alarm that goes off at 9:45 to be like, man, the show's going to start. Heads up, don't forget. Play some music. Let's go. Well, today, knowing, that I stayed up late getting ready, being fully prepared for the show to do a video review, and then I was going to talk about my upcoming trivia event that is next week. Live trivia, Brain Vault. Go to thecasbuffalo.com to buy tickets, all that. We were going to do that in the first segment. 10:30 was going to be a conversation with Jay Skurski from the Buffalo News, who was heavily involved in the weekend and became part of the story when Sean McDermott, after his press conference, needed to talk to somebody, needed to keep talking about what had gone down, and called Jay. And I'm like, well, all right, McDermott's got Jay's number, so do I. So with an assist from friend of the show, Gary Sangbush, who texted me, he's like, you should get Skurski on tomorrow. He's in the news. I was like, oh, yeah, thanks. So I got in touch, lined it up. I thought, oh, boy, Jay's probably busy. I don't know what's going on with locker clean out, although it feels like that was yesterday. He's a busy guy covering this team. And he's like, yeah, I'm good. So he was going to come on at 10:30. And so I've got video review and just talking about the weekend that was for half an hour. Then I've got Skurski for 20 minutes. We'll take a 10-minute break. We bring on Scott Wilson for an hour. The show is done. So I was like, snooze. In fact, after the first snooze, I was like, I'm resetting the alarm. I'm exhausted. I stayed up late doing this thing. I'm going to get up at 9:30 and get extra sleep. And I woke up at 9:30. I had about 30 different text messages telling me that Sean McDermott has been let go as head coach of the Buffalo Bills. And that was not something I expected to see this morning. So the overall course of the show has changed. Maybe. Right from the start, I'm not going to talk about a play from a football game that happened a couple days ago because so much has transpired since. Specifically, the Bills need a head coach now. I haven't even had time to do the math on how many openings are there and how many have been filled and who is interviewed where and all of that. I don't have a list of primary candidates. I've got a bunch of stuff in my head, so this will be a free-flowing conversation. The chat will be a big part of it. Feel free to jump in and be a part of it there. I asked Jay Skurski if he's still available and said no hard feelings if you can't do the show today. You have an actual job. And he said, I don't know, check in with me in a bit. So I actually set an alarm, or not an alarm, but a timed text to go out to him around now to say, hey, checking in, how are we looking for 10:30? If he says he can still come on, he'll be on with me soon. If he says, sorry, man, too busy, then we won't get to use the cool little avatar I made for him today, but we'll get him on sometime, I'm sure, this week. And then Scott Wilson will just jump in early. It seems that is the case. So a lot of scrambling going on. But the news of the day, obviously, is that Sean McDermott is out. I don't even have, it's been so crazy the last 40 minutes or so that I don't even have the thing where it's like Sean McDermott out after X number of years. I think that would be 9 years as head coach. So we go from, Mike Tomlin being the longest tenured coach, followed by probably Harbaugh, followed by McDermott. They're gone, all of them. Who's the longest tenured coach in the NFL right now? It can't be. It's a surprising. Oh, Andy Reid. Andy Reid's still there. He was in that top. Maybe McDermott was fourth, but there is a shakeup going on in the NFL. People want results now, and there has been a McDermott's got to go sentiment for probably as long as he's been the coach, but pretty close. I mean, he got a little benefit of the doubt, probably for 3 years, 4 years, something like that, and then it was like you're wasting Josh Allen, and the first time that the phrase "fire McDermott" came out of my mouth, and I didn't even mean it, but the first time it came out of my mouth was when I thought he wasn't going to challenge. At this point, it's last weekend's game, which feels very far removed. I don't even remember what the play was at this point, but I hated it. I was like, it was the Trevor Lawrence diving ahead for the first down, but his leg was clearly down, so there's no way it could have been a first down in the playoff game against the Jags. And I yelled at my TV, "You throw that flag or John Harbaugh's got your job tomorrow." And I was like, oh, that just, I guess somewhere in me, I'm also feeling the need to move forward here. Because something, it seems, needs to change. There's a statistic somewhere about how unlikely it is to win a Super Bowl with a quarterback and a head coach combination if you don't do it in the first, I think it was 6 years. So all of that started creeping into my head. But I didn't have any, bloodlust for McDermott's got to go or Beane's got to go. And my understanding from my senior fastest texting correspondent, Bubba, who's always first. I got 30 text messages. Bubba's the first one. Like, McDermott's fired. Okay. He's very good at interneting. So I've got a lot to say, but this is a super, it's very breaking to me because it broke, and then it's like, what am I doing with the show? What's happening with guests? So I got to see what Skurski. I can do a call then. Probably will need to keep it on the shorter side, but I'll have some time. All right, so in 6 minutes, we'll check in with Jay Skurski of the Buffalo News, who was at the center of the story. Really progressed. So, it's been crazy. It's all been crazy. For once, I'm going to try to not make this show about my personal life, but I don't think I can tell the story of how much of a whirlwind this is without explaining that my son had a baseball game at 8 o'clock on Saturday. So the Bills played 4:30, and then in theory it would end at 7:30. We arranged so he'd be out at the game because I couldn't get him there early because I got to watch the Bills. And I thought, well, as long as the game doesn't go to overtime or anything stupid like that, I'll be able to get there in time for the games. He'll be there early. I'll be there on time or very close. I live in Amherst. The game's in Elma. So I watched the game in real time. No rewinding to look at anything. Didn't even go back to see and really form a full opinion on the Cooks play. All I really thought was, and honestly, the moment that I liked the best from McDermott this weekend was when he said all the same things I was thinking. Like, I don't know what the right call is. And I still don't have a super strong opinion on what the right call is. But I do know that officiating in the NFL they're doing it wrong. And the ability to just, we got to keep this game moving. We don't have time to stop and think about this one. I thought that was terrible. And I agreed with everything he said about that. And he even said, initially, before he called Jay, and changed his mind after he had watched it a bunch of times. But I was kind of where he was. Where he was after the game is where I was until last night. Last night, because we had the baseball game, and then I came home and I was like, the Bills lost. I'm not watching any football now. Put on a comedy special and go to sleep, or whatever I did. Watched a movie. I don't know. It seems like a lifetime ago. You get to Saturday or Sunday, we had 3 kid basketball games. I didn't wake up in the morning and start breaking down film and forming opinions on what I thought about the play. All I knew was I didn't feel comfortable with the way that it was rushed through. So all I had at that point was me thinking that and McDermott saying that. Then it comes out that he sat and watched the play a bunch of times and then needed to talk about it more. And I was okay with all of that. So he got in touch with Jay. He called him from the plane, I believe. We'll talk to Jay in a couple minutes. And said, okay, now that I watched it, I'm more mad. And while I agree with that sentiment, like, not as fully as him, but I like to play even less after I watched it. It did seem like the last desperate phone call of it's off a sinking ship. He was on a plane. I'm glad the plane didn't, no problems with the plane. But it felt desperate, but I still agreed with it. And that's why I was going to have Jay on and be like, what do we make of this? Is he fearful that he's on his way out? Yeah, I think he was. Because he is. So the Bills are out. A bunch of really good games over the weekend. Three really good games. Whatever. Jay's going to come on. Scott's going to come on. We'll do all of this. You're welcome to chip in whatever you would like in the chat. We've added a sponsor for Brain Vault, which is the live trivia event beginning next Tuesday. And it is the Financial Guys. You've heard about them because Brian Janik of the Financial Guys is a sponsor of this show. And now the Financial Guys, as an entire entity, will sponsor Brain Vault, along with Buffalo Trim. That's going to clean me up and make me stop looking like this. I've been wearing winter hats because my hair is just going like that. And the beard is horrible. And they're going to fix me this week. I'm not sure exactly what day, but one of these times I'm going to come on camera. I'm going to look way better, and it's going to be thanks to Buffalo Trim, who are cleaning me up for my stage presentation, which begins a week from tomorrow. So McDermott out. I haven't read a bunch names that are being thrown at me via text message. Do I want to get into that, or do I want to just call Jay? This is where being a one-man show is really, it's fine. It's fun. It's easy. It's 10:30 already. It's taxing, though. So this is super unprepared. This is like you caught me walking down the street like, this just happened. What do you think? I'm like, I guess we got to start thinking of candidates. We got to think, did they fire him because they have someone else in mind already? If they have someone else in mind, who might that be? Most prominent name in NFL circles would be Mike Tomlin. Does that make sense here? Did Mike Tomlin leave because he wants to do broadcasting? Did Mike Tomlin leave because he knew that as soon as the Bills got knocked out, this job was going to be available? Did Harbaugh do the same? We heard 2 weeks ago, or going into the first playoff weekend, that Harbaugh was going to sit it out. And he sat it out, and there were some rumblings that it could be the Packers gig, it could be the Bills gig that were intriguing to him as he was leaving Baltimore. Packers got knocked out. Obviously, it wasn't that. They retained LaFleur, unless I missed something. Did I miss something there? I believe he's still there. And then he took the Giants job, and now McDermott's out. I don't know. Are those things connected? All right, we got a team statement from the Bills. We'll do team statement from the Bills, followed by a phone call to our friend Jay Skurski. All right, what does this one say? The Buffalo Bills announced that Sean McDermott has been relieved of his duties as head coach. Sean has done an admirable job of leading our football team for the past 9 seasons, said owner Terry Pegula. But I feel we are in need of a new structure within our leadership to give this organization the best opportunity to take our team to the next level. We owe that to our players and to Bills Mafia. Sean helped change the mindset of this organization and was instrumental in the Bills becoming a perennial playoff team. I respect all the work, loyalty, and attention to detail he showed for this team and the community. I wish Sean, Jamie, and his family the best. Moving forward, Brandon Beane will now serve as the president of football operations, general manager of the Buffalo Bills. Brandon will oversee all facets of our football operation, including the oversight of our coaching staff. I have full faith in and have witnessed Brandon's outstanding leadership style and have confidence in his abilities to lead our organization. Beane will be leading the search for a new head coach and will be working directly with Pegula and Pete Gwelly, who will now serve as president of business operations during the interview and hiring process. All right. I forgot to do the unquote there, so it sounded like Pegula referred to himself in the third person. He did not. I'm going to call Jay Skurski right now and connect with him. And then I'm going to switch to graphic. I got a good Skurski on vacation graphic that was the plan for when we were just talking about him not having to, cover the team for a little while. Here we go. There's Jay. We hit call, and we await him answering. I'm just going to put it live. He can handle it. I know he can. There we go. We turn that up, and then when he answers, it'll be live. Do we have you already, Jay?
I am here.
Oh, sweet. You're on live, so I didn't have the opportunity to call you off and say, we're going to go to you in a second. I was going to have you on for a completely different reason, and, maybe we'll get to that a little bit. I really appreciate you taking the time on what is obviously a busy day. It's chaos for me, and I don't even really do this. I'm just hanging out, doing a show at my house. I guess I've just been rambling for half an hour already. I'll turn it over to you just for your initial thoughts on this. I guess, first of all, does it come as a surprise? And two, did his phone call to you that became national news reek of a little bit of desperation that maybe indicates he kind of felt this coming?
I guess it's fair to draw that conclusion. I don't know at the time if it felt that way to me. It felt more like he had, fully digested the play and wanted to say more about it. Certainly it was highly unusual. That it's probably the first time, probably will be the last time in my career that something like that has happened. But I don't know how much. I don't think his phone call to me factored into this decision. Honestly, I think it was more the history of playoff failures, the feeling that Sean McDermott had taken this team as far as he can go, and that they needed a change in terms of leadership at the top. It feels very similar to when Tony Dungy was let go by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They had a lot of success regular season and then even into the postseason. This is a team that has made the divisional round of the playoffs 6 years in a row. That is no small accomplishment at all. But over that time, just 2 appearances in conference championship games, no trips to the Super Bowl, obviously. I think all of that factored into the belief, at least internally, amongst the Bills and Terry Pegula, that Sean McDermott had sort of reached his ceiling as a member of this team, as a leader of this team. And so I think that's what led to this decision. Did Sean McDermott, maybe see the writing on the wall or feel that this could be coming? There could be something to that, certainly. That would be, based on maybe conversations that he had with ownership at times this season. I think in due time we'll learn maybe a little bit more about that. But to me, this points to a move of an ownership group feeling like the head coach had reached his ceiling with this franchise.
I woke up very surprised to this news. Are you surprised by it, or this isn't even does it make sense? This is, are you surprised that they went ahead and did it?
I'm not surprised. I'm borderline. I'm shocked. I am shocked.
Oh, all right.
I think that Sean McDermott, listen, Sean McDermott was hired by Terry Pegula before Brandon Beane was hired, right? And so I always thought that, that Terry Pegula would lean toward keeping the coach that he brought on. This was the first real major decision, I guess second, obviously Pegula was in charge when Rex Ryan was hired, and we know how that ended, right? And he got it right with Sean McDermott, because for as many faults or flaws that you could say that he had, particularly in the playoffs and coming up short, Sean McDermott restored credibility to a once proud franchise that had really become a laughingstock in the NFL. And the culture that he built is going to, be left behind. And, the way that he navigated some very tumultuous times for this team, Damar Hamlin's situation in Cincinnati being maybe the best example of that, I think was exemplary in a lot of ways. Sean McDermott championed Buffalo and Western New York and the Bills franchise in a way that no coach has probably since Marv Levy. Now I didn't cover Marv Levy, but the way that Sean McDermott spoke about this organization should have made everyone proud to be a Bills fan. And so he did a lot of great things for this team. He had taken them, as I said, to the divisional round 6 years in a row. That is no small accomplishment. So for Terry Pegula to have the fortitude to feel like he has to make this change and then to do it, particularly when you look at the other professional team that he owns in town, and keeping a general manager probably at least 3 years longer than he should have. I'm absolutely shocked that he made this move today.
Yeah, I forgot to even connect the Bills to the Sabres, to be quite honest. It's so jarring to me that this happened, but pretty active stuff going on. A pretty active couple months here, a month and a half at PSE, with taking long-time people and saying, all right, there's been some success, obviously a lot with the Bills and almost none with the Sabres, but yeah, I'm ready to make some moves. I'd like to see this all turn around and not just be respectable, but be a real contender. And the Bills have been a real contender. Is this a decision between, in your estimation, and I know this is all fresh to everyone, is this a decision between McDermott and Beane? Was there enough of a rift between the two of them that it was a one or the other situation, and that alone could change the direction of the franchise? Or do you think there was consideration to, what am I going to do? Which one am I going to fire? Could it be both? Again, we're just guessing and speculating, but you're pretty knowledgeable about the organization and the way things run and the vibes going on over there. Could this have been a both go at the same time type of thing? Would that have been even more shocking? Or I don't know. I don't know what the exact question is, but the line between Beane and McDermott is kind of what I'm trying to address.
Well, it felt at times this season like there was, I don't know if a rift is the right word, but, certainly there were moves that Brandon Beane made that backfired. I mean, let's be honest, right? And I think a big part of the surprise in this today is that it is, number one, Sean McDermott, and then maybe number two, that it wasn't both of them, right, in terms of being out. Because, a lot of the reaction that I'm getting, and, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you may be a little bit more tied into what social media is saying right now. I've been so busy in just writing, but I'm getting a lot of reaction that they fired the wrong guy type of a thing. And it does feel like, if you were assessing blame for, the state of the Bills roster this year, you would look at some of the personnel moves that Brandon Beane made and not the coaching job that Sean McDermott said. If you wanted to have a conversation about firing Sean McDermott after 13 seconds and that loss, I think I'm all for it, right? Because, that was a coaching failure. I don't know that you can look at what happened in Denver, for example, 2 days ago and say, well, the Bills were out-coached and that's why they lost this game. Now, Sean McDermott was hired, based on his track record as a defensive coordinator. That's what the position that he was in with the Carolina Panthers. In those 6 years in the divisional round or beyond in the AFC Championship, the defense has given up an average of 33 points in those games. That isn't good enough, right? And so where Sean McDermott's side of the ball, his expertise, has failed the team in the postseason too often. That is absolutely true. Now, it's a separate conversation than Brandon Beane and the decisions that he's made. Brandon Beane's lived off of drafting Josh Allen for 8 years now. He's struggled in a lot of other areas, whether that be in the draft, early in the draft, Kyer Elam. You can go down the list. Cody Ford is a second-round pick were misses. So that part of this is maybe as surprising as the decision to move on from McDermott, is that they're not only they've given Brandon Beane a promotion here. As I'm looking and we're talking, in their team statement, which I'm going to just pull up for you here right now just to see what it says. Brandon Beane is going to serve as the president of football operations / general manager. So they're not only keeping Brandon Beane, they're promoting him. So, to say that is a surprise is a very accurate statement on my part. I'm almost forgetting, as I'm doing different things here, but I'm almost forgetting your original question. But yeah, I am surprised that they're not only keeping Beane, that they are going to he's going to oversee this new coaching search.
Yeah, it was this year was the first time I really, because fans call him McBean like it's one thing, and this was the first year where it felt like we should not do that. Whether it goes back to the receiving thing and how Beane reacted after the draft and calling into the radio show and talking about how the defense is the problem, it's not the offense. That sounded like McDermott's the problem, not the offense. And the receiver stuff, and then you think about the way that McDermott reacted after Darius Slay was claimed off of waivers and they lost Jamarcus Ingram and then Slay wouldn't report. This is the first year you started hearing it was never like super finger-pointing, accusatory stuff. But the tone this year, we started hearing things in public where it's like, hey, don't look at me, man. Look at that guy. That's kind of how I felt. So that that helps me understand how they make a decision between one or the other. And clearly, Terry sides with the guy who's in the front office as opposed to the guy who's on the sideline. Is it automatic? This will be the last question because I know you're busy, obviously, and I really appreciate you coming on. We're going to have a whole entirely different conversation than this one, and maybe we'll do that soon, but that's not today. Is it a given that this is about not wasting Josh Allen's prime, and therefore, when we're looking at candidates to be the head coach, we should much more strongly consider people with an offensive background as opposed to a defensive background? Is that a given?
Yes,
okay.
100%. I mean, maximizing Josh Allen's prime, what's left of it, has to be the sole focus of this coaching search. You don't make this move unless it's for that reason. I would add to this that I almost wonder if Josh Allen was, I don't want to say consulted on this, but I would imagine that he was made known of it, maybe at least before it went down. You almost think that a move like this, a franchise-altering move like this, probably isn't made unless the starting star quarterback is on board with the decision. That, to me, leads you to a path of you're either going to hire the youngest, brightest offensive mind that you can, or you're going to try to hire a head coach with a Super Bowl winning pedigree or maybe Super Bowl experience on his roster. It is a bit premature to kind of have that list of candidates. We'll see where that leads us here in the next 24 or 48 hours or so. But you start to wonder who is going to replace Sean McDermott, and for this move to succeed, it has to be that you maximize what you have left of Josh Allen's prime. And so for that reason, I fully expect that it is going to be, as I said, either an offensive-minded head coach who is new to the position, or it's going to be somebody with experience, and I'm talking Super Bowl experience, who Beane and Terry Pagula now believe can get them over the finish line, and by that I mean past the AFC Championship game to the Super Bowl.
I thought you were going to say, and by that I mean Mike Tomlin, but could have gone either way there. Dable's a name that's going to come up for sure in conversation. Tomlin's going to come up. Kurt Cignetti is coaching tonight. There have been rumblings about NFL possibilities for him. I thought they sounded stupid. They now sound much more intriguing now that the Buffalo job is open. I'm just speculating, and that's all we're all going to do for a little while. But you've got work to do. Thank you so much for your time. We'll talk for a longer period. I still want to know how freaky it was to get that phone call and how weird, like that whole process. We could do 20 minutes on just that. I'm so interested in it, but now's not the time. We'll talk to you soon, Jay. Thank you very much for your time, and enjoy your work. Enjoy today. Happy Monday.
We'll do this again when my mind is a little bit more focused on everything. But happy to join you anytime, man.
Awesome. Thanks, Jay. There's Jay Skurski from the Buffalo News. He's at Jay Skurski. I made the cool graphic. We couldn't not have him on after I made the graphic. This was supposed to be Jay is on vacation now. They cleaned out the lockers. He gets to take a break. He works and slaves over this football thing, and then it goes away, and so I put Jay on the beach. Thanks, AI. Looks just like him. They cut off the sleeves. They did that to Scott Wilson on his graphic, too. I don't know why they think everybody wants to wear Belichick-type sweatshirts. Why does AI think that? But thank you to Jay. That got me thinking about something. I've got one thought. If you're familiar with me, you know that one thought leads to 17 thoughts. But something that came out of what he just said jumped out at me, and I considered keeping him on to ask him what he thought about it, but he asked me to keep it on the shorter side, and 15 minutes is the short side of a conversation here on Riter Radio. So Scott Wilson will be on for a full hour, and it wouldn't surprise me if it goes longer than that, because what are the rules? Like, there's so much to discuss. We were already at certainly a full hour. No breaks, no nothing, of things that we were going to talk about. And then the Bills fired Sean McDermott this morning. So what does that warrant? I guess it makes Tuesday's show not suck, right? Because I can save all the stuff that was going to be Monday for Tuesday, while also adding to we've got ourselves a story right now. And here's the thought. I'll leave it with this. We'll take a break, and then we'll talk to Scott. And then we'll get right back into this. Jay brought up, it's like, I don't know if he was, Josh Allen was consulted. You have to. You have to. That's the team. And I know there are many contributors, but that's the guy. The reason they've been to the divisional round 6 years in a row, the reason they are a perennial contender for the Super Bowl is that guy. Anyone else who's there, like, good job, Beane, you picked the right one. You traded up for him, cool. But your entire career is based around that decision. I'm not knocking you for it. Good job, McDermott. You won a ton of games with this team. You've been a contender every year. The last 5-6 years, let's say 2020, they've been a legit, not just in Buffalo, but everywhere. You're talking about the NFL. You can't talk about who's going to win the Super Bowl this year without talking about the Bills. But it's not because of McDermott, although he did a tremendous job of bringing the franchise back to respectability. They made the playoffs in his first year before Josh. Now, you could say there were many times before that where they were this close, and a bounce here or a bounce there would have gotten them. That drought, they weren't terrible for 16 years. They missed the playoffs for 16 years. They were terrible for a handful of them, but more often than not, they were like a 6-10 team that, if a couple things were different, could have been a 10-6 team and could have been in the playoffs. And I'm not saying they were ready to win the Super Bowl during any of those years, but the drought was, it very much exaggerated the failures of the franchise. But McDermott came in and in year one stabilized it to the point where they won, or just happened to be the guy who was standing on the sidelines when randomness allowed the Bills to get in. I mean, McDermott can't be credited with Andy Dalton hitting Tyler Boyd on that pass against the Ravens after the Bills had just beaten the Dolphins and they were standing around. Tremendous moment. It was awesome. And now they're going to open a new stadium with a new head coach. And I'll just put it this way. Put yourself in the shoes of a national sports, pundit. How on earth could you, with a straight face, go into next season if it's Beane, McDermott, Allen, and be like, I think this is the year the Bills win it because they drafted a receiver in the first round or something? I don't think you could reasonably do it. Something had to happen. I'm surprised it was something this big. I'm kind of impressed that the organization had the intestinal fortitude to make this move on this day at this time. But there might be a plan. They might have a person in mind, or they might not. Either way, I get it. I can't say they shouldn't have done this. But I did appreciate 9 years of respectability. And, there was, during that drought, the fans became the story. You guys we were the best part of the team. The Bills were great, and the fans came along. I mean, I'm 51. The Bills, my first real Bills memories are the 80s, early 80s. And I remember making the playoffs, and I didn't appreciate how crazy it was to win the division in 1980 because I was 5. I remember it happening. I remember goalposts coming down. I remember what it meant to beat Miami. I didn't appreciate it, but I remember hearing what a big deal it was. I hadn't witnessed the 20 consecutive losses or been conscious for it. But the overall trajectory of the franchise is early 80s, hey, we're kind of back, Chuck Knox. And then disaster for several years. Right in the middle of that, you draft your quarterback that's going to fix everything. He's like, screw you. I'm not coming to Buffalo. It's cold there, even though he's from Pennsylvania. But he played in Miami. He went to Houston. Finally, that league folds. Jim Kelly shows up in 86. And at that point, they had to recruit. I told this story recently. We had season tickets as a family because they were often like half-price tickets through the company where my dad worked. It's like, all right, yeah, because they needed to fill the seats. And then it turned out to be really a fun run that we still celebrate to this day. And then Marv Levy, Kelly retires, Levy retires, Wade Phillips comes in. It feels like they're kind of still the same team. And they missed the playoffs that one year after he says both teams are out of it, going into a night game against the Colts. Must have been a Monday night game with like 3 weeks left. He says both teams are pretty much out of it. They weren't, mathematically. The Colts won that game. The Colts made the playoffs, I believe. And Wade Phillips had to go. But he didn't go yet because we still had the Flutie Johnson thing and home run throwback. And then that was it. It was a sad moment. But then they didn't make the playoffs. And the team was nothing from then. They decided to change uniforms. Bledsoe comes in. Big Bad Voodoo Daddy plays at the stadium. All that stuff. But off the field became the story. They signed Terrell Owens. This will make it better. Russ Brandon's the GM. All of that whole era. The fans around then, and specifically after the Stevie Johnson drop against Pittsburgh, the fans become the story. The Bills Mafia thing is born. The diving through tables thing becomes national news. And suddenly it's like, these people in Buffalo are crazy. And then we pretend nationally that it's been like that all along, that we've been that hardcore, and we were not. We were that hardcore for the 4 years when they were going to the Super Bowl, and we can pretend it's always been that way. And I'm going to take a little side road here, but this is to help younger viewers, listeners understand. Remember when the Sabres were temporarily awesome, and it felt like the entire city was rallying around that team? And if you were young enough, you didn't know that that was new. That's not what it was always like. The Sabres were an afterthought. But then things got hot, and it went nuts, and we started having parties in the plaza and going to Eastern Conference Finals. We're going back 20 years here. But I think people who were, if you were 10 or 11 or 12 or whatever, you were my kid's age. I've got, 9, 11, 12, 13. If you were that age in like 05, 06, you don't realize necessarily that it wasn't like that. So then it's like, oh, the Sabres, this is a Sabres mad town. It's like, no. The Bills have been terrible, and the Sabres are great right now and super exciting, and we're rallying around it. But you might have thought it was always like that and was always going to be like that. But look what a drought did to that team. Interest wanes, ticket sales flail. The team can't make the playoffs. Same type of thing. Like, there are cycles. So to bring it back to the Bills, the fact that they worked themselves out of the cycle where the fans were the story and turned it into the team is the story, and then the bond between the team and the fans, that all became a thing under McDermott, Beane, Josh Allen. Of those three, which one is a Hall of Famer already? That's what you have to build it around. And here's the point. I said I have one point I want to make. I didn't even get to it yet. When Jay said, I don't know, I would assume maybe, I don't want to put words in Jay's mouth, but he brought up the idea of, is Josh Allen consulted before a move like this is made? I'll throw this out there. I think that explains the incredibly tearful press conference that I have not brought myself to watch after that game. I think Josh Allen had to have been consulted on, look, if you guys can't get this job done, are you going to be okay here if McDermott is out? And Josh has a bond with that guy, and that's been his only head coach the whole time in the NFL. And the way that he cried, and I haven't brought myself to watch. I will now with this as my background knowledge. I might even do it on the show. Not today, because Scott Wilson's coming on in a couple minutes. I think right now, again, without seeing it, that Josh Allen being that emotional about letting Buffalo down, I think that's about letting Sean McDermott down. This is a thought that was just formed in my head when I heard what Jay said. But Josh isn't, he's emotional, but he's got it together. He doesn't think he's done. He's still planning to win a Super Bowl. Why does he react the way that he reacts after that game? Why is he full on in tears? It's not just like he was emotional. It's like, no, he's bawling the way it's been described to me. I haven't seen it yet. I've seen his face. I've seen a photo of it, but I haven't watched or listened. Why is he bawling about letting down Buffalo? I'm not saying that's not a real emotion. I get that he feels it, but why is it so extreme? I think it's that extreme because he knows in that moment either that it's going to happen, that there's a very good chance that Sean McDermott has coached his last game with the Buffalo Bills, and he feels the burden of that he should have been better to get that done to save McDermott and get him what he deserved in Josh's mind, which is a Super Bowl championship. I think when he says, I let down Buffalo, he means McDermott, and he can't say McDermott, and that's why the emotions are so visible. It's just a thought. It's top of mind, but I think that I feel pretty solid about that guess. That's a good thought by me. Huh? Did you think of that yet? I thought of that on the fly. I think it's right. Josh had to know. You can't fire the head coach without knowing that this guy is going to be okay with it. Whether he agrees with it or not, the organization decided it's time to move forward. They have to have talked to Josh Allen. And he does a nice job of keeping a secret until he can't with his emotions. He still doesn't reveal, I let Sean McDermott down, and now his family has to move. But that's knowing what we know of Josh, if you do believe in him as a genuine dude, and I don't know anybody who doesn't. I certainly do. I don't know him. I don't think I've met him ever. But I feel like he's my friend, don't we all? Just watching him on the field, watching him in the community, watching him mic'd up, watching him on training camp show, Hard Knocks. We feel like we know him. And his super duper crazy emotional reaction didn't make sense to me unless you think, as I do now, that he knew full well that loss meant the end of McDermott as the head coach of the Bills. Timeout. Scott Wilson will join me in just a moment. I am going to play. I've just been playing goodbye songs. I started with Bye Bye Bye. I got into Goodbye to Romance from Ozzy, which didn't make a ton of sense, but it's Say Goodbye from Dave Matthews Band. Should I just play a regular song? A little pick me up. We don't need to be sad. It is sad. I wasn't here to call for his head, but part of me not calling for his head is I didn't think they'd do it. I guess and as Jay pointed out, look at the lack of success with the Sabres and how long it took to pull the trigger. Throw this out there. I thought McDermott in his press conference was channeling Lindy Ruff. I felt more connected to Sean McDermott when he was talking about, hey, I don't know what the call is. Just slow it down. Just give us a chance. Take a look. This is what we do in this league. Take a look. That felt to me like, it reminded me of Lindy Ruff after Darcy Tucker took out Jochen Heschnee in the playoffs. His famous, it's a joke. It's a joke. I felt tied to him, like he was speaking for all of us. McDermott channeled that and spoke for all of us. Was it a move of desperation? Was it him saying goodbye? I'm not positive. But I do think that all of this, Josh having knowledge of this about to happen, would explain why he was the way he was in his postgame. All right, I'm going to play a song. And this will be pretty quick. Getting back to Scott, because I don't want to wait. Is there anything here that makes sense? In the meantime, yeah, all right, we'll do that. Be right back. I'm Brad. It's episode 246 of Riter Radio. Sean McDermott out as head coach of the Bills. We'll talk about it with Scott Wilson in just a moment as we continue. It's brought to you by Brian Janik of thefinancialguys.com, and we shall return. Stick around. Do you have anything in particular that you want to talk about today, Scott?
Buffalo Bills.
All
Your
right.
thoughts?
Yeah, thoughts? I had such a full show prepared, and then just throw it out the window. It was gonna be great, and it's been good already, and it's about to be better because you're going to be on with me for I would imagine quite some time. There's a lot to process, and I feel
Well,
like I
we'll
don't,
be,
go ahead.
as far as I know, from my understanding from you, is we'll be streaming live until the Bills select a new coach.
Right, I'm gonna do it from the top of a roof or like on a billboard or something. Should I do one of those stunts to get some attention? It seems like maybe the right thing to do. You start where you want, man. We're gonna get into why this happened, how this happened, any surprise this happened, who's next. Is it crazy that it's McDermott and not Beane, or that it's not both of them? There's whatever. Do what you want. Where we start?
Yeah, well, I'll say, obviously, with the loss and with that game, there's a lot to talk about. And I have about 30 bullet points that I wrote down yesterday of stuff that we could probably get to and talk about. And I have it split into two areas. The first is about the game, which I think we'll eventually get to.
Yeah.
And the second is GM.
Hmm.
So I am shocked that the decision was made to let go of Sean McDermott. And I'll just say, for everybody out there that is like, okay, we couldn't get over a hump, be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for. Because I don't see anybody out there available right now that's a slam dunk that's going to go and do this. I've heard a lot of, Tony Dungy, this is Tony Dungy. They got rid of Tony Dungy for John Gruden. It's not
available.
like they were who is available, I guess, but it's not like they're out there. The move wasn't to get rid of Tony Dungy for Nathan Shieldhouse or something else like that. That was not the situation. What they were doing was bringing in another coach that was right there, and he was able to, and more of an offensive mind, to go with the already stacked defense. That's not the case here. The GM did not assemble a championship level defense, yet they were in contention. Look at the teams in the divisional round. The Bills, I think, talent-wise, had the worst defense, and yet there they were in the same round with everybody else. The Bills do not have a defense on par with any of the four teams that are left in the playoffs right now. Not even close. And so how much of that goes down to the head coach? And, how much do you blame the chef, and how much do you blame the person that shopped for the groceries? That's kind of where I'm at. And to me, the way that this version of the team was assembled was fundamentally flawed. And combine that with, to me, the sheer ridiculousness and audacity of this said GM to go on local radio and try to shit talk guys for daring to question his roster assembly, to me, speaks louder than anything. Because I've heard Sean McDermott take the blame an awful lot, but I've never heard Beane get out there and take the blame. He's the one assembling the team. And I think McDermott, this year specifically, listen, if you're going to get rid of McDermott, to me, it was after 13 seconds. And I think that you and I have both heard rumblings behind the scene that that's kind of where there might have been a chasm that started between these two, that might be leading to where we are right now. I think Beane probably wanted to make the move there and bring in Dable and put Dable as head coach, but I don't think that was allowed. And that's also part of the reason why I thought, well, if they weren't going to do it then, obviously Beane doesn't have the power to do that. And Pagula is not going to get rid of a guy that's winning games. I don't know. This year is not the year that I would put on the shoulders of Sean McDermott. I thought he actually did a pretty good job with the hand that he was dealt this season. Again, the way that this roster was constructed made it very difficult to do anything. And to me, the general manager, Brandon Beane, is more to blame. If I was the owner and I was looking at this situation and I had to pick one, I would have removed Brandon Beane and gone out and gotten another general manager. Because it's ridiculous, the attitude that this guy has had, and then to go out and make the moves that he did. And we can go through a lot of those moves. Again, the number one thing being he has yet to assemble a championship level defense there, despite all of the investment. And somehow that's all being dumped at the feet of the head coach. And I don't think it is. They can't get pressure with 4, and the whole defense is based upon that. If they can get pressure with 4, and in the years where the Bills were able to moderately do that, they had statistically like the best defense. They didn't this year. They haven't for a while. They haven't gotten a sack from a defensive end in the playoffs since 2000, Jerry Hughes. That's a long time and an awful lot of freaking playoff games. That's not
2020, 2000 is a long time ago. I screw up the numbers sometimes.
2020.
Yeah.
2020. Yeah, sorry.
That's all right.
That's a long time. The bottom line is this. They brought in Josh Allen, and they have not been able, under Brandon Beane, to solve defensive line and wide receiver. And they continue every year to be a massive problem. Ed Oliver, good in spurts. What has he given you? He is always hurt. Availability is one of the best abilities, and he's quite often, more often than not available. And I think, they keep making these acquisitions. Look at this past offseason. He signed 2 guys that couldn't play for 6 games and said he knew that.
He knew it about one of them.
Ogunjobi sucked this year. He did absolutely nothing. 46 pass attempts for the Broncos. No sacks. Brandon Beane spent $120 million in the offseason, plus a 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round pick. I'll give him Walker. It looks like he's going to be a player. Where's everything else? That's not scheme. At a certain point, you got to have guys that go out there and make plays. And he's the one making the picks. I don't understand how he gets away from all this and gets a promotion out of all that. He's drafted 56 guys since Josh Allen. There's 2 Pro Bowlers in that mix. He's done some nice late round picks, sure. Yeah, some of those guys, but that's not going to get you to the Super Bowl. That's just not going to happen. And he can't surround the team. He can't surround his best players with the team. His plan this year, and he's running the team, so I'm not just going to lay this at McDermott's feet, was we're going to take pressure off Josh, we're going to run the ball. Well, great. You had the league's number 1 rushing attack, and Josh was sacked more than he has been in years. So, even that plan didn't work out as they planned. And all that being considered, they were still close. They still should have won that game. Their quarterback had the worst playoff game of his career after what is literally the best playoff quarterbacking performances up until that point in the history of the NFL. He had a bad game. And now that's all going to fall at the feet of McDermott. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. And now they're coming into next year with over $30 million of dead cap. As of right now, they're going to be $3 million over. They've got decisions at kicker. They've got to deal with Knox and Rapp. McGovern is up. Milano is up. What are they going to do with Epinesa and Bosa? I mean, there's a lot of decisions here. And there's going to be at least 2 guys that are not going to be on this team that are names from this year. And now the guy that's made all of these decisions coming into this, that have put you in this position, is going to be the one that you promote. I just don't get it. I don't see it.
All right. You started with, if one of these guys had to go, I mean, clearly if the premise is one of them has to go, your decision would have been Beane goes and McDermott stays. But one of them didn't have to go. So your choices were they both stay, they both go, or one stays, one goes. What do you think is the right move? Is it clearly you don't want Beane here, but would you have gone Beane and McDermott out? Is it that Beane was selected over McDermott that is bothering you so much, or
that's it. Okay. That's it to me. Listen, if you say we're not getting over the hump, we need to make a change, and we're going to clear it out, and we have a plan of somebody to come in here. If I was probably owner, I probably wouldn't have made a move. I probably would have brought them back. But that's also me speaking as a scarred New York Giants fan. Watching all, what has happened there over the past over a decade and just slide from being at least relevant to completely irrelevant in the National Football League. And just going one after another between GM and coach, and just that slow slide into Never Land. And the Bills have been there before. And here's a guy that came in, set the culture, has everybody's respect, playoffs 8 out of 9 years. You're there when you weren't there for a long, long, long time. And to me, I know that maybe you say he's got an all-world quarterback, and if he's not going to do it, then he's going to do it. And I get the stats too. If a head coach doesn't win a Super Bowl in his first 4 years, the odds are he's never going to win one. Or very, very small.
Well, and especially the coach and quarterback combination. There are statistics on that where it's like, all right, this combo is not working, and there are a lot of people that'll tell you that the difference between a good team and a bad team. You need to look at two spots, and those are the two spots. So, clearly, quarterback's not the problem on the team. Say whatever you want about how he played the other day. He still did enough things. He's fine. He's great. He's my favorite. He's the best player they've ever had. So he's not the problem. So if you can't win, if quarterback and coach are the two top things you need, I get it. I was not on they've got to fire McDermott bandwagon, but I woke up this morning to the news and thought, oh, all right, well, I kind of wanted something to change. And I keep going back to, how could someone not in Buffalo look at the landscape of the league at the start of next year and say, I'm picking the Bills to win it? Based on what? They're always right there, and it never happens. So how could you do that? And if, I appreciate that Pagula or whoever's advising, Gwelly, whatever, that they're like, okay, we got to move here. There's a level of appreciation for that. At no point prior to this weekend did the idea of firing McDermott even cross my mind. I shouldn't say that. It was the Jags game. It was the first time that I was like, you know what? Maybe you should go. So I wasn't pushing for it, and I'm not 100% like, yeah, they had to do it. But I mean, it's exciting. It's fun. It's going to be fun. Coaching searches are fun. This to me feels almost like when they fired Lindy Ruff, and it was like, it's not Lindy. Everybody likes Lindy. Everybody respects Lindy, but I don't know. What else am I supposed to do at this point? And it kind of feels like that, and it's the same ownership. So I wonder, and McDermott reminded me of Ruff in his press conference when he was talking about, I just wanted time. I just wanted them to look at the play. This isn't how we do things. Why is this happening so fast right now? He reminded me in that moment of Lindy Ruff. It made me like him more. And 2 days later, he's out as coach. So there's not a question in there. I just felt like it was my turn to talk. Thoughts?
Well, let's look again at the team that was constructed. And this is, I think, for me, if you said, all right, we're going to make a move from McDermott, I think that would be fine. To me, it's McDermott and then a promotion for the general manager. And the defensive end stat, the 0 sacks, that's in the last 5 elimination games. I shouldn't have said playoffs. The last 5 elimination games in the playoffs, no sacks from a defensive end since Jerry Hughes versus the Chiefs in 2020. All right, let's look at wide receiver, which obviously, our mutual friend drives a train across town. Considering about this, is a very public proponent of this. Brandon Beane spent $26 million last offseason, and he got 4 touchdowns this year, all from Shakir out of those deals.
You're saying you don't think Palmer was a success?
Josh Palmer, who goes on IR with a pinky, whatever they're saying that was his deal. I think it was a little bit more than that. I think that they were very displeased with Josh Palmer, and he ended up just going on IR so that it was easier to get a roster spot open for somebody else up there. At the deadline, they don't get Shaheed, who would have been a difference maker, clearly, because he's on another team in the championship weekend. Waddle at the deadline was apparently available. didn't make a move there. Picks over the last couple of years, all within 5 picks of where the Bills went in 2023. JSN, Addison, they went with Kincaid. I guess you can't argue that. It's taken a while to get that thing going. But again, just like he was in college, he does have an injury situation where he's injured a lot. So there's that factor. Keon Coleman instead of McConkey in 24 seems to be a bad decision. Even trading out there to the Chiefs, Worthy was a big part of eliminating you in the playoffs last year in the AFC Championship game. I don't think he's some world beater, but he at least has shown to be better than Keon Coleman has at this stage of their career. And then this past draft, they picked at 30. 9 later was Luther Burden, who you and I saw personally in Missouri, and is having a great season for the Chicago Bears, or had a great season. I guess they're over.
Yeah, they're
now.
done.
But, went in there and made an immediate impact with that offense. So it's not like they haven't, they're picking towards the back of the draft and they're so successful and all those top picks are up top. Yeah. It's not like there haven't been really good players or Pro Bowl caliber players in that position around where they've been picking. So they he loses that to me. And the other thing, here's the other big thing where this situation that a general manager leads directly to what happened this weekend and directly into games more than a head coach. Darius Slay becomes available. Darius Slay, without being consulted by the Bills, is picked up on waivers by the Bills. No one bothered to ask him, are you willing to play here? Which obviously the answer is no, because as the Bills were in overtime, there were pictures of Slay tailgating, last week, that he's tailgating in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So they pick up Slay, which means they have to drop someone, which is defensive back Jamarcus Ingram, who has been a consistent off-the-bench player and special teamers for the Bills. Well, all right, Slay doesn't show up, and Houston picks up Ingram, who, by the way, had an interception in a playoff game yesterday. All right, well, that kind of sucks. But on the field, what does that mean? Well, that means that Harrison has to play in the fourth quarter of a blowout against the Jets because they don't have the numbers anymore. So now Harrison is injured and banged up and is not available in the playoffs. So what does that mean? That means I got to see Trey White and Dane Jackson at key parts of the game against a good wide receiver core for the Broncos. And what happens? White gets what is the final game-deciding defensive pass interference because he's slow and trying to catch up to a faster wide receiver that theoretically Hairston would have been able to keep up with. Or Jackson is now in the game instead of Trey White coming in that spot. Trey White's already in the game. So now Jackson has to come in. Jackson comes in, one play, one touchdown. What happens at safety? These are all guys, they draft Hancock last year. Hancock comes in and gets attacked mercilessly by the Jags last week. It's bad enough that when Cam Lewis, who's playing safety now, and I thought actually played great.
He was excellent.
Now Cam Lewis gets a cramp. I need a guy to play 1 minute of NFL football, literally, until halftime when he went down. 1 minute of NFL football. They don't bring in the guy from Jacksonville. They bring in the new guy, Savage. So Savage is the guy picked up by the general manager. He comes in. He plays a play, touchdown, because he's overrunning his responsibility and out of position. I'm sorry. The general manager's moves this year have directly led to on-the-field failures and directly led to this team losing in the playoffs. Don't get me wrong. We'll talk about the game. The game is on Josh, period. The game is on Josh Allen. An average Josh Allen game wins them that contest, and he had a negative game. The turnovers, especially the one before the half, unforgivable. Absolutely unforgivable and ridiculous. That being said, there are real down the line avalanche type of situations that happen because the general manager made bad moves in this offseason. And yet he gets a promotion. That's what's bothering me. Why is he not taking any blame for all the things that he had to contribute to this situation, specifically that Slay move? McDermott was not happy. He never says anything. And he was out there several times like, well, yeah, Harrison had to play because we're one short in the DB room now, because the guy that we had trained for 4 years, is now with the Houston Texans for no reason, for nothing. We got nothing out of it.
Yeah, that one is impossible to explain. You have to know what you're doing before you put in that waiver claim. And, the second it's through, it's like, no, I'm not going there. I was trying to go to Philly. The whole point here was I was going to go to Philly. They released me so I could go to Philly. And for Beane to not know that, I didn't know that going in. I saw the Bills just signed Darius Slay, and I thought, good move. But I'm just a fan. It's not on me to, handle the due diligence before making that sort of move. And, McDermott was obviously outspoken about it, which is not like him at all. So that was a bad one. Almost everything else you said, I can at least go, well, injury. And I'm not saying we blame injury. There's injuries all over the league, but almost every one of the things, like they didn't fix the D-line. Like when Hoyt was there for 30 seconds, he was incredible. It was like, this is a great signing. And then he was done for the year. Oliver has been a very productive player and a very good player. Can't stay on the field. Injury. I can't say you shouldn't have drafted Oliver because he's going to be hurt a lot. The thing with at the end of the half where Cam Lewis is down he was right back. That's right. It was dehydration.
It was literally 1 minute, 55 seconds, I believe, of actual NFL game time.
Right.
And they said, we're close enough to the half. Let's just take you right back.
Yeah.
We'll get you the IV. And at elevation, cramps like that happen all the time.
Sure. Yeah, it was expected. And they were prepared. They had the oxygen mask. It didn't turn out to be as much of an issue as I thought it might have been. Obviously, they lose the game in part because of this little moment. But if that moment doesn't happen, then the Josh, trying to do too much fumble thing, whatever that was, doesn't happen. That's a 10-point swing. And just protect that last minute. Even if they wind up with a field goal there, the other part doesn't. You're okay. But that's a 10-point swing right there. It's awful. And then again, the last, really one play at the end of the game, it's like, well, he's down. They're probably going to target him. Yeah, there it goes. Good luck, Dane Jackson. Bye. And that's, obviously it's not the game because it still goes. There's a million parts of it. But specifically, I feel much more comfortable criticizing things that didn't even work on paper, as opposed to, I put these guys on the field, and then this guy got hurt, and then this had to happen. The Slay thing is, if not a fireable offense, it's a massive failure where you can point to no one else. You did that. You didn't do your research, and therefore Jamarcus Ingram isn't on this team anymore. So that one to me is far more glaring than the rest, that all at least can be tied to an injury. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, all right. How about the fact that why can't we say Dane Jackson's on the field or some guy off the street is on the field because he drafted Kyer Elam, who sucks.
That's legit, yeah.
I mean, from what I understand, there were some coaches on the staff that did not want to draft him.
Well, right, because there was a thought he's just going to take penalties, right? Like wasn't it that? He doesn't fit our scheme, and if we put him out there, all he's going to do is grab. And that's exactly what happened. And that's why he was a healthy scratch for the vast chunk of time he was here. And then they just let him go and said goodbye after, 2 years? Like, that was it.
Right. Now, I mean, the same draft, I think they took Benford, right? I mean, that was here's the thing. I understand, and I have a great deal of respect for the fact that Beane does actually have a pretty good track record 5th round and out. He's able to find contributors 5th round and out. Cam Lewis was not drafted.
Right.
Yet is clearly an NFL level player.
Ingram wasn't either, and we're talking about him.
Right. Andreessen, we're naming all the UB guys that they're down the street from. But there's also the other side of that where it's like, how are you guys also missing on the good players? Like, you can't only survive on 5th round and out. you have to hit your first round picks. They have to be big time difference makers because you're in a position with a quarterback like this that you can take it to the next level, and they haven't. Kaiir Elam sucked. They traded him to Dallas. Dallas had him for 5 weeks and was like, yeah, no, they're right. This guy sucks. And they kicked him off the team. They cut him.
Yeah.
So, it's just, I don't know. This guy is going to continue to make the decisions, and I don't think that he has made the decisions worthy of granting them a promotion. And if I had to pick between the two, I probably would have kept McDermott. I feel bad for McDermott. Of all the playoff games to get fired after, I don't think this was the one. I think he did borderline his best coaching job this year, with the things that were put in his lap and getting this team that was not nearly as talented in several positions, especially on defense, getting them to a position where we're going into the divisional round saying we really think the Bills could win the Super Bowl. And even then, it took a 5-turnover game to get them out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think so. Okay, you want to switch to the game? Because I thought we were going to have a very, very full show anyway, and now you've been on for like half an hour, and we haven't gotten really to the game. A couple plays here and there.
Well,
but,
there's
the rest of the NFL. I'm not blaming
10 minutes before.
No, I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying I know you've got a lot to say, and I've got a lot to say, and this is the problem. Like, there was a part of me, and maybe if I didn't have to leave to run to a Little League game immediately after the loss, I would have said, hey, let's just go live now, because it didn't occur to me that by Monday, everything I had to say about this would be, kind of dead in the water. I sat up so late last night getting ready to break down just that controversial Cooks play, and I had everything ready, and Jay Skurski was coming on to talk about McDermott calling him and how weird that was and what that all meant. And then you were going to come on, and we're going to do this. We're going to do the rest of the football weekend. We're going to preview the national championship game tonight. We're going to do all of that. And then I wake up, and it's like, oh, no. I guess let's throw that out the window, and I would feel bad if we didn't at least talk about the game a little bit. So the game ends, and I don't watch any post-game, no nothing. I get in the car, and I can't even listen to post-game on the radio because my kid's game is like half an hour from here, and they're starting, and he's starting pitching. So I've got Game Changer going, and I don't know if you've ever done this, but if you you can put the audio on Game Changer, and you can listen on the radio to like a little robot voice doing play-by-play for your game. So I had to listen to that as I'm driving as fast as I can to get to the game because I don't want to miss it. They ended up getting beat, too. What a horrible day, by the way. Saturday, woke up.
Yeah, terrible day.
My son's basketball team, they have 9 kids on their team. They had 7 that were going to be there. We get there, we have 5. The other team has the full 9. So my son, he's been playing a lot of basketball, he's getting there, but he is a 6'2", 200-pound kid who is not equipped to run for an entire game, and they go down early. Mentally, they're already destroyed, and now they've just got to play the whole time. They're looking up at the clock, they're looking at the scoreboard. It was the worst. And then I come home, and I didn't watch it, but the Sabres lose, which is not normal these days.
In OT,
they got a point. We'll take it. And then the Bills happen, and then I drive as fast as I can to this game, and we got killed in the baseball game, too. We're playing a couple levels up. They're like older and an A team, and we're younger and a B team. It was okay, but I was so excited about a full day of sports, and everyone lost. Everyone. Then I went into yesterday having 3 basketball games. Each of my kids had a basketball game. We went 2-1. They combined for 24 points. I felt a lot better. But I had to watch the Patriots advance to the AFC Championship game. I got to watch the Bears. I think the Bears are the people's champion in the same way. Like, I want to watch Caleb Williams play against Josh Allen instead of watching whatever the Super Bowl is going to be. And I've got a couple of ideas. I want to run them by you. You tell me what you think about these ideas to put together a game, like a one-off game between the Bills and the Bears. Because I think Josh versus Caleb Williams, that's TV ratings. Would you agree that people want to see that?
You're talking Independence Bowl?
I'm going to tell you what I'm talking once I pull this up. Because like I said, I stayed up late. I had a lot of ideas. I think it's in here. All right.
Toaster Strudel Bowl at
no,
UB
no,
Stadium.
No. These are
Bills.
better. These are better.
Bears.
No. All right. Donald Trump stages a cold weather alternate Super Bowl in Greenland featuring populous contenders Bills and Bears, dubs it the Ice Bowl, and then tells us we've got great people on both sides. Would that work?
Well, yeah, but you don't have either the Nobel Prize or Charlie Kirk anywhere in there.
Okay,
But I assume both of those would be involved in some way, shape, or form.
This is another idea. I have it written somewhere. Oh, here it is. Broncos, after losing Bo Nix, decide to give their bid to the AFC Championship game to the Bills, like Trump got the Nobel Peace Prize. The Broncos aren't going to go with Jarrett Stidham and beat New England, right? So they just say, we're going to bow out. They hand over the thing as if we won, as if the Bills won, and we get to go, and then we just pretend like we belong there. What do you think of that idea? Would that work?
I'd be all right with that.
Okay. And then
I'd be okay with that.
I only have one other one.
Like Notre Dame declining their invitation.
Similar, yeah. And then, a 5-win team gets to go to a bowl game or whatever. That's an idea. And then I have one other one. This is like the first one where Trump stages the Super Bowl, except this time we need a different name than the Ice Bowl. It wouldn't make as much sense. Same concept, Bills versus Bears. We play it in Saudi Arabia. Each player is offered exactly what they were paid for the entire season this year to participate in this one game. The only rule is that nobody can criticize the Saudi government in the post-game press conference. Those are my three ideas. Which do you like best?
Is the game played in sand or on grass?
I don't know. Yeah, like the Bahamas Bowl. The Bahamas Bowl is played basically on sand, right? That's why they wiped it out. I'm not sure. It's just a thought. All right, never mind. Forget all that.
I will say Trump has been involved in football this week.
Yeah.
He set out a executive order guaranteeing the Army-Navy game time slot because there's talk of the college football playoff possibly expanding to 16 teams, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to schedule it out. And in the process, somebody must have called Trump and said they're talking about putting games on Army-Navy weekend, which has traditionally, for the past, 10 years or so, has been just for them. So he wrote an executive order. I don't know. Most of the stuff Trump does has absolutely no weight behind it, but everybody follows it. So we'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
But back to the game.
So like I said, let's talk about the game.
Well,
Oh, I know what I was going to say. No. I had a point. I got to the baseball game. So I hustled. There's no post game involved. I watched it. I didn't rewind anything. I had gut feelings about things, but I never rewound because I was afraid of losing track of the live feed. And I just watched the game start to finish. Then I got in the car, and then as soon as I got there, people were like, "So what do you think of the Bills game?" I'm like, "Well, I'm trying to write. I'm the scorekeeper. I'm trying to write stuff into this book here. Give me a minute." My quick answer was, if they don't fumble 3 times, if they fumble 2 times instead of 3 times, they win the game. And one of them is the Cook thing where they could have, they were well on their way to going up 14-3. Totally different game if he scores there. One of them is a sack fumble that I think just happens every now and then. I don't put that one on Josh. The other one is a ridiculous 3 points gifted to the team. Like that to me, aside from the controversy at the end, that horrible fumble where there's very little chance of anything positive happening is the deciding factor in the game. So my knee-jerk reaction after listening to no one, just watching live, what happened? Be like Josh fumbling in the last 20 seconds of the first half and gifting them 3 points was the deciding factor. That was my first take on the game. Okay, now it's your turn.
Yeah, just to add to the Saturday misery, it was just the day of overtime losses because UB basketball on the road against undefeated Miami, Ohio, losing in overtime at a 3-pointer at the buzzer in overtime.
Both teams over 100, too. Crazy.
Both teams over 100 is a spectacular game. For me, that led into watching Syracuse lose in overtime at Boston College basketball. So I'm like, okay. And then the Sabres lose in overtime. And then I'm like, all right, well, let's go football. And then, boom, There's a 3-point loss in overtime. By the way, Bills become the first team in NFL history to lose by 3 points or less in the playoffs in 3 straight years with that loss. But yeah, I mean the fumble at the end of the first half is the difference in the game. Period. You know, you can argue that the touchdown that leads to that would not have happened if, you know, they were able to have anybody else at safety. I will say Taylor Rapp and Poyer were both there and then got hurt. So I don't know if I can lay that at the feet of the general manager, but at a certain point, you know, these are the guys that you put on the team, and every time that we put in one of your guys, they suck. So, so there's that. I don't like focusing on the officiating, because the reason this game was lost is the turnovers and the fumbles, specifically the one, like you said, at the end of the half. Because even if, all right, let's say that minus those 3 points, like you know, you look back and the Bills drive down and win the game with a 50-yard field goal at the end, right? And they win 30-27. I just hate how we get to this point of the year where the Broncos played 17 games, and they're the most penalized defensive team in the NFL. And they had no in-game action penalties called on them on defense. They didn't do anything wrong in that game. And then we get to the problem with the Cooks play, to me, as a fan of football, is there's no consistency with it. Last year in the AFC Championship game, that wasn't an interception for Bishop, and a similar play against the Chiefs near the goal line. And then 24 hours later in Chicago,
Davante Adams.
That was not an interception against Davante Adams in Chicago, but this one was. And that's I think what makes it hard to take, and even harder when you get on social media and every former player, everyone, sees it and is on social media saying that's absolutely a catch. That should have been a catch down by contact. Like, well, yeah. I mean, that's the frustrating part. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter. And there's a key difference, too, that we talk about all the time in UB games. Just because in the MAC, there's less cameras, there's less angles. So what is originally called on the field in UB football games becomes massively important, because so often it's very hard to find conclusive evidence that is different. That's not the case here. That's not the case here. But in the Bears game, it was ruled a reception down by contact, and that is probably the difference, because in the Bills game, it was ruled an interception.
Well, and I'm sure you've seen the Steelers.
I don't think that's overturned, right? If that's a catch.
No, I don't.
Right.
I don't think so. I don't know how it would be. Steelers play during the regular season has popped up too, where Rodgers caught his own pass, and it's the same type of thing. It, to me, is very similar to when there's a fumble and there's a scrum, and you know, there takes us a minute and a half to undo the pile. And then this guy comes out with the ball. But then we look at the replay and we see this guy is on the ground covering the ball before everyone piles on top of him. And it should go to that guy. And they will rule that way if they've got the video evidence. There's also this idea of surviving the ground that, A, has been eliminated. It was eliminated from the rules in 2018. We still kind of use it as a barometer. But to me, there's a difference between, like, let's use the play right before this play, where Mecole Hardman dives and he's got the ball in his hands and it's there, and part of him touches the ground before the ball comes out, but he's diving and it's not a catch. And I think we all accept that. Like, no, you've got to have the ball when the thing ends. But that's because he's not touched by anybody. The Cooks play, to me, he has the ball in his two hands, and there's contact on the ball with his hands by the defensive back. But his knee touching down while he's holding the ball and contact is being made by the defender ends the play. To me, I don't know. I mean, I'm the same as everybody else. The NFL's got a massive problem in that for 10 years now we've been talking about what is a catch, or maybe even longer. We don't know. And they keep adding in this language. You know, you add in the language of football move. That doesn't mean anything. You made that up. That doesn't clarify anything. What's a football move? There are all
They're
these
just making
terms.
it up.
There are all these terms that are thrown around as if they answer the question, and all they do is create more questions. So, I don't know. To me, my frustration was not even with the call until last night when I finally sat there and rewound it a bunch of times. Because as I mentioned, I was crazy busy from the moment the game ended until 10 o'clock last night. And that's when I sat and watched and rewound and watched and rewound. And I intended to do the entire first half hour of this show about that play and how it looks and what I'm hearing and the garbage coming out of Sterator's mouth and the process by which, I guess they issue you your own personal referee for playoff games now. So McDermott's got Brad Allen standing right there. He calls timeout just to slow things down, just to make them look at it. He asks Brad Allen to have Cheffers come over. Cheffers is like, yeah, New York said it's good. We're done. Between the time that the play was made, like from the time that the DB stood up with the ball and the time that the Broncos were lined up at the line of scrimmage, right before McDermott called timeout, I ran a stopwatch on it. It was 1 minute and 15 seconds. If we've got 10 minutes to look at, first down, yes or no type of play in the second quarter of a game in week 3 between the Bengals and the Titans, we certainly have a couple minutes to think about this one. And that's the problem to me, is the NFL hurrying up in that moment when the reality is, this play's a little bigger than that. And it's in the moment, I'm still looking at it going, I don't know. I don't know what I think this is. All I know is I want to think about it. Don't let Denver snap the ball yet. And that was McDermott's main beef until he went and watched it a bunch of times, which my life, it was the same. I went through it the same way he did. In the moment, I was like, just slow down. And then way after the fact, I looked at it a bunch of times and went, no, that's catch. But I'm not even mad about it not being catch. I'm mad about the lack of effort to make sure you get the call right.
And I'm not pleased to hear a bunch of the talk from NFL/officials afterwards of making sure we're moving things along, indicating that, the next game kicks off in 15 minutes already, and we got to get this thing wrapped up. No, you don't. No, you don't. Everybody will wait. Everybody will be able to see everything. Don't worry.
Even the Little League game waited. The Little League game was supposed to start at 8 o'clock, and I got in the car at 8 o'clock or something and turned on the little game changer thing, and it hadn't happened yet because everybody there was watching the game. So they didn't even start warming up. The game didn't start till like 8:23, and that's a timed game. We don't even have innings. They just play on a clock, and they were able to wait. You're telling me the NFL can't wait? You're telling me that CBS isn't okay with having this broadcast drag out, this super dramatic playoff game featuring one of the top stars of your game? We can't drag this out, have an extra 2 minutes of television time on this? Everybody wants to see it. I would have sat and watched for 15 minutes as they reviewed that play and been okay with it. And that's even if I'm not interested in the Bills, if they're just a team in the league, I would sit and watch it. It was super interesting. It was crazy. What's the process? Someone explain it to me. They can't. They don't. It made no sense. So I was a little bothered by that.
Well, just one other thing on the officials is, I think the Teron Johnson call before the Trey White call, I think that if you're going to call anything that's holding, he had a hold of him and was grabbing his arm. The ball hadn't come out yet. Because if you look at once the ball comes out, I don't think that there's a lot of contact there at all. Now Bosa, lit the guy up. So they were going to get 15 yards anyway.
They were getting the first down, and it was, they got a little bit of extra. The thing that I question on that is Knicks put so much air under the ball. Like, I was thinking the same thing, and then I thought, I don't know, the ball was in the air for 5 seconds, so maybe it becomes PI. That said, the play before that, I think it might have been immediately before that, Johnson got away with one that I think more often than not would be called PI, but they didn't call it PI, and I thought, oh, that's a makeup for not calling PI on the play earlier that would have been a first and goal at the 1 on Cooks. That those two looked identical to me, and I thought, all right, they're just letting it go. So if we're just letting it go, we're letting it go. They're both they're close. They let those two go before they start kicking in with the penalty flags. Do you follow what I'm saying here?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah. And Ed Werder had the stat of in the last 25 years, regular and postseason, there's only one other time where a team was called for multiple pass interference calls on a single drive in overtime. And that was the New York Jets against the Packers in Week 17 of 2018. So
Fake game.
those, something like this
Yeah.
happening is incredibly, incredibly rare. Now, back to the actual game itself, and again, looking at the decision that was made today to get rid of McDermott, all things considered, 5 days rest against 12 days for Denver, 2 time zones. You lost Poyer and you lost 3 wide receivers. The team was still prepared. They were still ready and competitive against the number 1 seed
Right.
in the NFL. So, it appeared that the coach had them ready to play. However, I think the one thing that you can make an argument with making the move at coach is I think you can draw a similar line to what the Knicks were dealing with this past offseason with Tom Thibodeau, which is, yes, he rehabbed us. He was here. He made us great or relevant again. I shouldn't say great. He made us relevant again. But in the locker room, the guys had started to kind of realize this isn't going to be the guy that's going to get us there.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you do come to a point with saying, does McDermott this year deserve to get fired? Probably not. But you do have to worry about the locker room and a level of, are the guys going to keep believing? Are they going to have the faith anymore after we've seen this guy slam his head into the filing cabinet over and over again now for 9 years with the best quarterback? I think there might have been an element to that of saying, we got to keep guys believing that we can get there. And I'm not sure if they're going to keep believing that if we don't make some type of large move here. And that probably was the McDermott situation. I mean, I know that there was some other coach, Cromer, offensive line, after the game comes out that looks like he's retiring, and he's a guy that's beloved there as well. That might factor into saying, well, some of these guys are leaving anyway, maybe we make the move. But, again, I don't think this season is one that McDermott deserved to be fired over, but there are other factors. You talked leading into me about Josh, and let's talk a little bit about Josh here, because again, this game lays firmly at his feet. You said maybe he knew that McDermott is a guy he's close with and has always been his coach, and maybe he knew that if they lost or didn't get where they were supposed to get or wanted to get, that he was going to be gone, and so that brings out a lot of emotions. I think the amount of emotion that Josh showed in that press conference was based on the fact that, these other games are sad that they lost, but Josh went 30 of 36
right.
for 370 yards.
Yeah, sorry, what could I have done? Nothing. Yeah.
Right. This sucks. But, I think this one he knows is firmly on him. This one is his fault. And it's not just the turnovers. It's some of the throws that he normally really makes.
Yep.
The Hardman out in overtime, that Hardman's an NFL receiver and it hit his hands. Make the catch. Make a damn play. You're getting paid to do this. Make a play. And still, that's normally one that's put right on a guy's chest and wasn't.
Yeah. And maybe it's different if he works with him more regularly, if he's been around. I'm sure that's a factor, but
Sure.
Yeah.
The screen to Shakir in the fourth quarter, that turns into a touchdown but skipped his way in. If that's, on target, I think he scores.
Yeah.
Anyway, the late
Knox
vertical
play.
shots, the four verts where they've got Knox dragging across the middle of the field, where he probably would have caught that ball at the 10 And with his momentum and only one DB there, I think he probably runs to the tackle into the end zone for the touchdown. At the very least, we're having a conversation about the decision at the end of the game. They would have had to take a timeout, 10 seconds to go. Are you pushing in for the touchdown to win, or are you kicking the field goal there?
Mm-hmm.
But I think he probably gets into the end zone,
I think so,
and
too.
that's one that he misses.
Right.
So, these are all plays that, are they even in Denver if they hit the 2-point conversion in against the Eagles?
Or if they're just making extra points if they have a kicker.
Or if they make extra points there at the end.
Right.
He had his roughest game and they still almost he gave them 4 turnovers, missed passes that he always misses, and they scored 30 points in the playoffs.
Well, my theory holds true.
Astonishing.
My theory holds true.
Still dragged him to the brink of a victory despite playing like garbage.
This, for the last 5 years, let's say, or 6 even, 5 years. Let's say 2020 is when they became this version of the team. For the last 5 years, you're either going to get rolled when you play the Bills, or 75 things are going to go your way, and all of them have to go your way. It's going to be the best
game you've ever heard.
And you're going to win by half a point. That's how you beat the Bills. And most of the time, that's the case. There have been a couple of games where the Bills got stomped. They got beat pretty bad in Houston in the regular season. They got beat pretty bad in the playoff game against Cincinnati. But generally speaking, every game comes down to if one of these 14 plays is different, they probably win. And that's what's I guess maybe there are other teams that feel this way, but we focus so much on the Bills and so much of our attention is on them that we see all of this stuff. But my God, it's one play flipping around, and this team would have won 10 of the 11 games that have been the most devastating over the last 10 years, right? The game against Minnesota, regular season game against Philly, all these things were just like, how did they lose that game? It's like, well, 14 things went wrong, and they lost by 3. They lost by 4. They lost by 1. It's nuts, man. It's nuts.
Yeah, they're either dominating teams, or I think if you look in games of the 2020s, we're just over halfway through. I think if you made a list of the top 10 games, the top 10 most exciting games of the 2020s, I think you could make a real good case that half of them feature the Bills.
Sure.
Which is a staggeringly large amount of number, considering how many other games have been played. Well, yeah. And how many other teams there are in the league.
Well, there's been a running joke. The Bills have been on the losing end of the game of the year for how many straight seasons in the NFL? It just keeps happening.
Right. Yeah. But I think that's
how you get fired as a head coach. Whether it's the right decision or not, it's if you win those games instead of losing those games, there's no conversation whatsoever about this. They're multi-time Super Bowl champion already.
In this stage also of the NFL, if you can't get pressure with your D lineman, if you can't get pressure with 4, you're in a real tough spot, because then you got to blitz, which means you have to play man-to-man in a league where it is easy to get defensive pass interference. In a league where, for a lot of the teams, a key play in their arsenal is chucking it deep, underthrown. And teams pick up 35, 40 yards at a chunk just based on that alone.
Well, that final Denver drive was just throwing the ball up in the air and seeing what happens. 2 or 3 times in a row. It's just heave the ball as high as you can, far as you can, and see what happens. The other part about it, I thought you were going to go this way, but the other key play for a lot of these teams is mobile quarterbacks. And if you get stuck in a spot where your man, they see that, and if they see a gap, they can take 15 yards on you because you're so busy trying to cover these receivers. And, the Bills take advantage of that, obviously. So it's not like it's, I'm mad about it. A lot of their success is based on that. If we put you in a spot as the Bills where you've got to turn your back on Josh Allen, bad news, dude. And that, that happened with Knicks. It happens with a lot of these, half or more of the quarterbacks in the league. Even if they're not, if their game isn't built around running, they've got enough mobility to burn you if you're not watching them. So, yeah, getting there with 4 matters.
So you brought up the 2020s, and this is the last stat that I have that I have down here.
Okay.
In the 2020s, the Buffalo Bills have scored the most points. They've also allowed the fewest points, and they have the best record. And their point differential is plus 902, which is 321 points more than the second place team.
Oh my God.
So clearly, by all metrics, the Bills have been the most consistent top team in the NFL and have not even made an appearance in the Super Bowl. And, you know, I think some of that, at least on both sides, you know, that's the yin and the yang of that. You have to say, well, that coach sounds good. You know, if you were just doing a blind resume, that coach sounds like he's doing a good job. But on the other hand, they haven't even gone to a championship game. Oh,
yeah.
You know, that's the
put you in a tough spot. It's how you wind up being,
Yep.
you know, the second winningest coach in Bills history, and you're just out the door following a loss, a tight loss, where if you win it, they were going to go to New England, and I liked their chances there, and then they were going to go take on an NFC team in the Super Bowl, and I like your chances there, and instead you're out. You're fired.
He's got 3 playoff overtime losses.
It's not good.
I mean, it's not like he's, again, the Bengals game aside, it's not like he's out here getting blown away. The Jacksonville playoff game, his first appearance there, it's 10-3. It's not like they were, you know, that was a close game.
And they were severely overmatched in that game, and they still were one score. Yep.
So, you know, it's a tough day, obviously, after you lose something like that. But I have no idea where they're going to go, coach-wise. I can tell you this: I've heard a lot of Dable, and as someone that has taken the Dable experience, I can with 100% confidence give you a 1-star Yelp review on that. If you'd like. I think he's a hell of an offensive coach. I really do. And I think he's really good with quarterbacks. I don't think he's a leader of men. I don't think that he is good at relationships. The Giants, when he was the head coach, had discipline problems. They had special teams issues constantly. There were, again, complaints from players that there was inconsistent kind of rules for everybody. There was a lack of discipline overall on the team, and they had a good defensive coordinator that he ran off because he did not have a good relationship with Wink Martindale, who had at the time that defense that now sucks with all of this similar or all of the same players. Were near the top 10 in the league in most categories and keeping them in ball games. So cool. He's Josh's friend. I mean, you know, so is Haley. He married her. He liked her so much. I don't want her to be the coach.
No, especially not while she's pregnant.
No. Yeah. God. Well, she won't be pregnant by next season.
Yeah, but maternity leave, paternity leave. I don't want to get into that.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't want. Yeah. But, you know, I don't think Dable's the answer here. If he wants to come back as OC, I'm open to that. I don't think he's a guy in the head. I don't think he's a head coach.
Okay.
He got a very big runway to do his thing. And I know that he won Coach of the Year the first year. After he left Buffalo, he became a very different coach. And I think that was because the structure of McDermott wasn't there, keeping everything else in place.
Do you want to talk about candidates, or do you want to talk about, like you used the phrase, blind resume? Like, what criteria are you looking for to take this very good team to team capable of winning Super Bowl? Like, is it? You know, I guess I can't say Super Bowl experience because then it's like that's Tomlin.
Well, that's Tomlin, or that's Mike McCarthy. I have no desire to see Josh Allen with Mike McCarthy.
Oh.
I don't know. I think the problem that you're having is when you look at the team. Again, 5 turnovers. They still scored 30 points.
Right, yeah, they
they
were
had
fine.
no wide receivers.
Yeah, they were fine. They were fine.
So, I mean, you say, all right, well, we're not getting any pressure. We got to fix the defense. But the coach you had was actually dragging the defense and doing a pretty good job of getting lesser parts to be more than the sum of what they should have been. I don't know. You're in a tough spot. I would think at this point it has to be somebody that like a younger offensive mind that's going to come in there and maybe solidify somebody that's going to be also an offensive play caller. For me, my first call would be to be San Francisco. If they're interested in moving on from Kyle Shanahan, who only has 1 year left on this deal, would they be willing to, maybe they're in the same position as the Bills? They've gotten to Super Bowls, but they haven't won. They haven't gotten there. Would they be willing to listen? Would the Vikings be able to listen for Kevin O'Connell? Something like that.
Stefanski's off the board, right? Stefanski, where did he go?
Yes, Atlanta, I believe.
Atlanta, right? Yeah.
Are they some of these other coaches? Can I get one from that I think is good in that vein from somebody else? That would be my first line of sight. From our end of the world, from my end of the world, college football, I know Cignetti has come up a bunch. I think it would be very interesting. I think he would very quickly become beloved in this town. The attitude, the swag, I think it would work and actually would be a little bit of what this team needed, maybe to have the confidence that we can get there. I don't think he's going to take it. I think he's fine where he is. He's making a ton of money there. And
about to get a new contract. Like there's a window that opens up by virtue of him reaching the national championship game, even without winning it. Like he's already
to renegotiate the contract that he just got the extension on a month and a half ago.
Right. Yeah, they can.
Yeah,
he's in a good spot. But there have been rumblings about him to the NFL, and it made no sense to me unless a ridiculously good job were to open up. And man, to sell it around here, he'd better win tonight. If that were the conversation, but I don't know, man. I don't know.
Their offense does run a lot of pro passing concepts, so that's at least interesting. For me, I think Cignetti's not going to leave. For me, the only other college coach, and Marcus Freeman said he's not leaving either. I know he had a lot of interest from the Giants initially. Kalen DeBoer down at Alabama is interesting because he has had similar success and has done an excellent job with quarterbacks and has also had, big game. He took Washington to the championship, and he is more of an offensive guy, but also structure and confidence in what they're doing there. So for me, those would be the only two names coming out of college, unless you want to investigate the current head coach of the football team at North Carolina. Can I interest you in North Carolina's head coach and girlfriend?
Maybe. I feel dirty. I don't even. I appreciate you not saying his name. I feel gross. I feel gross having this conversation, but I don't know. Would he bail on that to hang out with our man Josh?
I think that he would jump at the opportunity to come back and to take another quarterback and prove that he could do it.
Well, he's still trying to prove his legacy against Brady, isn't he?
Yes. Do you want that? As a Bills fan,
kind of.
Do you want that?
Kind of.
Okay.
It would be exciting.
I would shy away from it. I would be shocked,
yeah.
But I'm just saying at this point where it's so fresh, you have to keep everybody's name out there at this point. You have to keep every option open because we don't really know what the plan is or where they're going to go. I know Minter was the defensive coordinator under Harbaugh out there in LA. Is a kind of a hot name that's been bandied about, but again, he's a defensive coordinator. Is that Are you going to go defensive again? Are you going to get rid of McDermott and bring in a defensive guy?
No.
That's not usually how the league goes.
Yeah.
You go from Dick Duran to Rex Ryan. Where it's either offense to defense or players coach to disciplinarian.
I always used to say
outspoken to quiet.
Mustache to no
swing.
mustache. It was always my thought on this. Like, you want the screaming crazy guy. You want Bill Cowher. You want the mustache and spit coming out of his mouth. And then you get sick of him, and then you want Duran. You want the calm, peaceful nerd. And then attitude is kind of what I switch. But here's a question. Do you think that there's a part of me that thinks you only make this move if you know who you're targeting? Is there a name that's out there? If this happened a week ago, if they lost to Jacksonville and McDermott got fired, I would say that's Harbaugh. That's why they're doing it. So now let's find 2 fake candidates to interview for the Rooney Rule and hire John Harbaugh. There's not a name that's sitting there right now that is so obvious to me, unless it's Tomlin. Did you fire him because Tomlin's your answer?
Well, you're going to have to give something up for Tomlin. Technically, he's still under contract.
Yeah, okay.
So are you willing to give up draft picks for Tomlin?
I don't know what the proposal is.
I'm not.
Well, I don't even know that I want him, but I'm just saying, do you fire your coach without a plan to replace your coach? I wouldn't do that. If I'm the owner and my team...
Doesn't Tomlin feel like McDermott just doesn't go as far in the playoffs?
Yeah. No, that's not my answer.
Okay.
But that's not the question here. Isn't about who is it. The question here is, does a team make this move off of a guy with a very strong track record if they don't know what the next thing they're going to do is? I wouldn't personally do that. I wouldn't fire him and go, all right, we're taking resumes, jobs open, anybody want to be the coach of the Bills? I wouldn't do that. I would only make this move if I know that there's interest from somebody that I think is the next guy, that is the replacement. I'm more framing it that way.
I think after 13 seconds, if Beane had his way, they would have kept Dable and fired McDermott.
Right.
I'm just throwing that out there. I think that's what they would have done if ownership would have let them. From watching my team's experience and swimming in some of the waters here where we kind of know people, Dable feels like George W. Bush replacing George H.W. Bush. I would much rather have a beer with W.
Right. But that doesn't make him... Yeah.
Much rather have my children be watched by H.W. And, that's kind of where we're at here. Dable's the guy in the lobby at the Indianapolis Combine of the hotel smoking cigars with a whiskey and having fun and talking to people. And McDermott is not that guy. And I don't know, and from being a Giants fan, that feels like he coached that way too. But never had the talent and the players to really coach that way. He didn't have the discipline or the structure involved in the team. It was all let's have a stogue and then let's go. And
let's go get a snack.
I don't know if that's successful in the NFL.
Right, but if you're switching...
I don't know if that works. It certainly didn't work for the Giants.
You're describing Rex Ryan, and that would fit with the pattern of you go this way, then that way, then this way. That would be Rex, McDermott, Dable. That fits with the pattern. We're going that direction. Nope, turn it around the entire other way. We're going that direction. It fits. I don't have an opinion yet on what I want. This is all so new. This happened, and then I turned on a microphone and started talking, which I think worked out well. And we had you on for a long time. We had Jay Skurski on. We had me by myself for a little bit. I don't expect to have answers yet, but that's why we do this, man. That's why we talk through this stuff. Your lock of the week from last week and second week in a row, it matched with Bob's, was, in fact, Indiana to win tonight. You want to do a couple final thoughts on that game before we let you go? And I can start reading what other people are saying about this situation, because this is crazy. This is wild Monday here on episode 246.
Well, yeah, Indiana tonight could be the culmination in the greatest turnaround in the history of college sports. There is no better turnaround than taking the team that has the most losses in the history of college football, and within 2 years, taking them to an undefeated national championship. I don't think they've. I saw a piece this weekend. Jane Pauley, who is an IU grad and does CBS Sunday mornings, had like a 5-minute piece on, hey, my school is good at football. Oh my God. Where I think it was like 139 years without an undefeated season. So, the story for tonight will be the Hoosiers, and can they take the crown? Can they assert themselves as, oh my God, we are the champions, against the, it's Hoosiers versus convicts tonight, against a team that is always just the rowdy bunch of Miami a-holes. They're a little bit more likable than they have been traditionally, this team. But the brand still carries that.
Not with those people on the sideline, it's not.
It's going to be, you're going to see Ray Lewis and Michael Irvin, and great skit on SNL, by the way, on Weekend Update, where they had a guy doing a near perfect impersonation of Michael Irvin. I don't know if you saw that.
I did not.
Where he said that the best joke in it, the whole thing is funny, but the best joke is that his mother was a hummingbird and his father was a brick of cocaine. And it perfectly fits him. But it's like they've got the OnlyFans stars are coming out like all over, like, oh, we're gonna go support the Canes. Like, it's all that type of stuff, and against Hoosiers,
right?
It's against Normandale,
exactly. Jimmy Chitwood.
And
honestly,
Jimmy,
Mendoza
and Jimmy
is
Chitwood.
Kind of Jimmy Chitwood. I can see that. That fits.
Right. In a way, yeah. No 5 stars on that team for Indiana. That's a bunch of guys that were evaluated based on production, not based on measurables. And I think that that's the most likable part for me, because we so often in the MAC live in that world of saying, hey, Robert Spillane for Western Michigan is really good. And then somebody takes him in the late rounds, or us screaming, Sean Dolak is great. And then the Rams finding him. And valuing that production is so important for the MAC. And to see somebody take an attitude like that to a school like Indiana and say, all right, fine. You guys can go ahead. You take a corner that's 6'2". I'm going to take one that's 5'9", and in the semis, he's going to start the game with a pick 6 because the dude can play. And that's why I like Indiana, and I love Signetti and his swag and the whole thing. I think it's going to be a close game if Miami's front four and Ruben Beane can get pressure and force Mendoza to be a little bit uncomfortable in the games that have been close for them. This year, Mendoza's been a little bit rushed, a little bit forced off the spot, especially that Penn State game. I think that Miami's going to try and duplicate a little bit of the pressure and the stuff that they faced against Penn State. But in the end, I still think the overall physicality of Indiana is going to wear down Miami, and they're going to be able to win and then pull away with a late touchdown and cover that number. So I'm pulling for the Hoosiers tonight. As someone that's always lived in New York between Syracuse and Buffalo, the hell with Miami forever in everything. And I think that they're going to have the physicality to overwhelm them tonight and win.
All right, let's stop. We'll have more stuff to talk about, I would assume, by Friday. I've got, everything that I had written down to talk about today didn't happen. I'm still going to break down that play tomorrow because I've got all these notes about my problems with NFL officiating in general that I think need to be resolved at some point. That was supposed to be a part of the first half hour of the show. It just didn't happen because the Bills fired McDermott, and we've had great guests in Scott Wilson for a long time, and also Jay Skurski earlier. So I'm going to wrap it up. Go ahead. You got something?
I'm just going to say at some point there's a lot of football and stuff. At some point, I think we should have a conversation because I think the most frustrating thing in sports is I feel like if you made me commissioner of all sports within 2 weeks, I could have most of this stuff fixed.
Right.
And I think maybe we should have an episode where we
Fix
dub
everything.
ourselves commissioner of sports
All right.
and try to fix things. Things like, because I think a lot of it is easy fix. I'm sure that your suggestions for NFL officiating are probably going to be pretty easy to implement. But just in sports in general, things like if I watch a boxing match and both of these guys come to the ring wearing black trunks, they both are killed. Like it's against the law to wear the same colored trunks in a boxing match. That should be, we can fix that, right?
Yes. 100%.
Champion gets to pick their color, and then the other guy gets every other color to pick from. You both can't come wearing red trunks.
Right. Well, you can't do red against orange. Remember the Titans stuff. That's not okay. You can't. That's not fine. I need to have clarification. Yeah, that's super simple. We can do this. When I first started in radio, we used to do a show like once a month about how to fix the NHL, specifically the NHL. Like it was just broken, disaster. Garage league was the term that was thrown around all the time. And they fixed a lot of it. It took them 30 years to get it right, but they fixed quite a bit.
Lockout.
Yeah, and a lockout. Yep. But yeah, no, I'm up for that. I'll start preparing. I'll start making notes. That'll be like a side thing that I'm working on of how to fix every sport. We'll do that. Let's make the show about that. All right, I'm done. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it.
Little person pinch hitters.
They banned them. They banned it. Eddie Gaedel.
Well, yeah.
We're number 3/8.
They're bringing them back if I'm commissioner of sports.
100%. Yeah, let's go.
I'm expanding rosters from 26 to 27 in baseball.
What can we learn?
27th player can't be above 3'8".
What can we learn from the Savannah Bananas? You know, in all walks of life. We can make this all fun. All right, I'm done, man. I got to go.
Okay, sorry. Yes. Go. Leave. Bye.
Thanks, Scott Wilson. There's Scott. I'm Brad. We're done for today. Thanks for listening. All the messages. Keep sharing. Go to thecasbuffalo.com and buy tickets for Brain Vault, the live trivia event that is growing as we speak. It's going to be good. It's a week from tomorrow. We kick things off, assuming the weather allows. I'm seeing in the chat that the weather turned quite a bit recently. There was someone, where is it? Visibility went from clear to literally none in about 4 minutes. Snow is crazy. At least everything is closed for the holidays. Yeah, it's horrendous outside is what I'm seeing. So I can't see that. I'm in the basement. I tried looking. I can't look through a glass block window that's covered by a curtain to see what's happening outside. And if I had more time to figure it out, if I had a break at any point, I would have taken my son and sent him out into the snow to do a live look at the weather if the weather was bad enough. But I couldn't even look. I turned around to see if I could tell anything through glass block windows. And from this seat, I could not. That would have been fun. Maybe I should play music. You know what? Rather than, I'm promising nothing here. But rather than just saying the show is over, I'm going to say I think the show is over. I'm going to put on music. I'm not going to play the will you go to lunch outro thing. And instead, I'll put on a song. It'll be a nice long song. Or no, I can just put on shuffle. All right, so I'm going to put it on, go to my Riter Radio playlist, which is somewhere here. That's not it. I'll use my WGSU playlist. All right, this will all be stuff from college radio in the mid-'90s. This is a long song. I'll start with this one. I might be back. You might just hear music, but I'm going to see. There might be something I can do with this snow if it's as crazy here at my house as it is wherever you guys are describing. But plan on the show being over, but I'm going to play music first rather than just wrapping it up in case there's something else I can do that's fun here. Does that make sense? All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks to Brian Janik at the Financial Guys. Thanks to Buffalo Trim that's going to clean this up. Oh, I should show you how bad my hair looks. 3 days since you last saw it. This is horrible. This is what I look like right now. It's as bad as can be. It's not even the top part. I don't even mind that. I mean, that's terrible. But it's the sides here that, God, I can't. It's all just thick and puffy and gray and stupid. This beard is just fur sticking out. We're going to fix it. Buffalo Trim's going to fix it between now and when the show happens, sometime this week. All right, so I'm going to play music. The show's probably over, but there might be something weather-related if it makes sense. Thanks for listening. Probably goodbye.